like to call to order the Whatcom County Council meeting for November 20th, 2018. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Baloo. Here. Barbara Brenner.
Here.
Red Brown. Here. Barry Buchanan.
Here.
Tyler Bird.
Here.
Todd Donovan.
Here.
Satpal Sidhu.
Would you all please join me in rise for the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So next up, I'd like to ask if you'd please turn off your cell phones, and if you'd be handing out any paperwork to council members, please give one copy to the clerk for our office files. And before we do anything else, this is a bittersweet moment for me. It was one of my proudest moments of being on the council was to preside as the council chair when Tim Baloo became the first member of the Lummi Nation to join the Whatcom County Council. It is with great pleasure that I've had you on the council to serve alongside you, and it is with great regret to see you rotate off the council. But with that, I would like to, on behalf of the council, I would like to give you the following.
Thank you.
You can open it now. Yeah.
Thank you very much. For the audience, it says, Certificate of Recognition, Gratitude, and Appreciation is hereby presented to Timothy Baloo II for your dedicated service to the people of Whatcom County. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Technically, I think I still have the rest of the meeting to serve, so I do want to thank the council for this opportunity to serve the people of Whatcom County. I'd like to thank Carol Frazee and all those others who ran for this seat in this position. It's a special responsibility that comes with special burden to serve the people, and I think that being able to step forward and serve the people is rewarding, but yet takes patience, humor, and also the willingness to do what's right, and not, as Councilmember Brenner says sometimes, to count noses, but to do what you think is in the best interest of the people. And I hope that I could have done that. There's only so much someone can do in 10 months, let alone in one term. But I do appreciate the opportunity to sit with all of you. And also I want to acknowledge all of the folks who've come out consistently to voice your opinions, your concerns, and to express what it is that you think that the council should be thinking about when making decisions. It really makes the difference. So I really want to acknowledge the people who are always here consistently. Thank you. Hajka.
Thank you. Ms. Brenner.
Yeah, I just want to say, even though I speak for myself, I think most of us feel this way. You are such an objective, thoughtful person. I knew him long before he was a council member. And what I've always liked about Tim very much is that he will think things through. I watch you do it. I watch you when, you're kind of absorbing things and thinking about it. And I don't even know most of the time which way you're going to go on something. And it's really fun to watch you think things through and then make a decision. That is so refreshing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sidhu.
It's been really pleasure that Tim, we have been sharing the office. Actually, I'm sad in a way that the Office of Indian Affairs is closing. When Tim came on, and that was the biggest joke that he was going to share the office with me. And Tim came up with this term, the Bureau of Indian Affairs. This is the Office of Indian Affairs. So, but I really value friendship with you, Tim, and we had a good time. Thank you.
On to the more mundane part of the business. But anyway, it's been a pleasure, Tim. All right, first up is 4 sets of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Buchanan moves and Ms. Brenner seconds. Any discussion? All in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. Next item up, we'll have several public hearings. Now, these are specific to the items that I'm going to identify. And at the end of this, then we'll have an open public hearing for any other issue relevant to county business. For these public hearings, audience members who wish to address the council during the public hearing are asked to sign up at the back of the room prior to the meeting. The council chair will then ask those who've signed up to form a line at the podiums. Each speaker should state his or her name for the record and optionally include their city of residence. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to address the council. Council staff will keep track of the time limits and inform speakers when they have 30 seconds left to conclude comments. When a large group of individuals supports the same position on an issue, the selection of 1 or 2 representatives to speak on behalf of the entire group is encouraged. Is there any sign-up sheets, or Madam Clerk's in the process of getting them now? And the first item up is a resolution authorising the levy of taxes for the Whatcom County Flood Control Zone District for 2019. In this case, the council is acting as the Whatcom County Flood Control Zone District Board of Supervisors, AB 2018-315. There's no one signed up. Does anybody wish to speak on this issue? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. What's the wishes of the council?
Second.
Move to approve, and this is a roll call vote, I believe.
It's resolution.
Did you wish to just discuss?
Yeah, just
Okay.
wanted to say one little thing.
Oh, Ms. Brenner, please
This
go ahead.
keeps it at the same level it's been, doesn't raise it.
Further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Tim Baloo,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner,
Yes?
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
Todd Donovan, Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Next item up is a resolution adopting the 2019 budget for the Whatcom County Flood Control Zone District and Subzones. Council again is acting as the Whatcom County Flood Control Zone District Board of Supervisors, AB 2018-316. Again, is there Ms. Detheridge has signed up for the public hearing, and if there's anybody else who wishes to speak on this issue, please come forward.
Carly Detheridge, for the record, K-A-R-L-E-E-D-E-A-T-H-E-R-A-G-E. Good evening, council members. I'm here on behalf of the Environmental Caucus to the Planning Unit. We sent a letter via email this morning requesting council to consider 2 action items which relate to the Flood Control Zone District budget. The first is consideration to allocate funds for the budget with a placeholder amount of $50,000 for the county to lead and coordinate a countywide water use efficiency and conservation program. And the second is provide direction to the county caucus representative in support of countywide water use efficiency and conservation as a high priority project in the watershed management plan update. So Deputy Executive Tyler Schroeder responded to the Environmental Caucus letter indicating that the current proposed flood budget has, quote, $200,000 to be used for the watershed management in 2019, and that the quote, it is recommended that the request be accomplished through the budget allocation we already have. So given Mr. Schroeder's feedback, the Environmental Caucus wanted to amend their first request for council to specifically amend the flood budget tonight to specifically set aside that $50,000 for water conservation and efficiency out of the $200,000 that's set aside for hiring consultants to comply with the Streamflow Restoration Act, also known as the Hearst Fix. So grant funding through the Streamflow Restoration Act is available to offset this budget allocation. Should the county be successful in applying for the grant, the Health Department or Public Works could theoretically run the program. In addition to the budget amendment, we hope you'll provide direction to the county caucus rep on the planning unit regarding water use efficiency. at your December 4th meeting, unless you're able to do so later tonight under other items on your agenda. It's critical that the county provides direction to the county caucus rep tonight or at your next meeting to elevate this issue on water conservation, just because of the deadlines with the Stream Flow Restoration Act. So the planning unit only has 3 more meetings, November 28th, December 5th, and the last meeting to approve the watershed management plan update on December
30
12th.
seconds, please.
So without your direction, the county caucus rep will likely abstain from the vote, which acts as a no vote and could result in a motion at the planning unit to not pass if too many caucuses abstain. And thus, it never makes it into the update. So we really urge you to consider both requests, and I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else wishes to speak on this issue? Seeing none, is there a staff report on this? No. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and do I have a motion?
I move approval.
Brenner moves approval. Is there a second? Donovan seconds. Any discussion? Mr. Donovan?
Yeah, that's kind of a lot to digest there. So we got the email about the budget request this morning. The deputy executive responded as saying we have a placeholder in there. I didn't quite get what the $50,000, what a budget amendment would be at this point. So I have that question about how would we even do a budget amendment, but the other thing is how do we direct or give direction to the planning unit to prioritize conservation efficiency as a project and that kind of wish list of stuff that they're working on?
Mr.
Sort
Lott?
of 2 questions, I guess.
This is County Executive Jack. Of the 200,000, we have 100,000 in there that's unallocated at this particular time for projects. Just talking with Mr. Stoika, and we have no problem committing up to 50,000 for what is being requested, as long as it goes through all of the proper protocols to get it allocated. So we have no problem with that, and as per the email, I believe, and the discussion that I had with the deputy executive this morning in light of the responses, is that we're willing to work with the group next year, and we have adequate funding within the funds to be able to make this happen. So I'd like to encourage council, obviously, to pass this tax levy, and the administration is making a commitment to make it happen next year as requested.
Mrs. Sadhu?
I was going to say the same thing. I support that, but at the same time, it is a placeholder because nobody's really clear. There has not been a clear proposal by the planning unit or environmental caucus that what exactly they want to achieve and whatever, and that takes time. And I think that the council does have the ability to come up with, even during the year, that if something like that comes to make some amendments. I just wanted to make sure of that.
Mr.
Yes,
Lott?
and one other comment is on December 4, Gary Stoika is has been trying in the last few months, or couple months, to get in front of the council to give you policy direction, or to get policy direction related to the upcoming votes for the planning unit and for the initiating government vote that's going to have to be made here in the next month and a half. So December 4 is the second answer to the question that you had.
Further discussion? Mr. Bird?
I'll be speaking against the budget for this item. The budget is for $2.4 million, almost more than what we have in revenue, in expected revenue. I would have liked to see that more in line with a balanced budget. I'll leave it at that.
Further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Barbara Brenner,
Yes.
Rudd Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
No.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Tim Baloo,
Yes.
That passes 6-1 with Mr. Bird opposed. Next item up is a resolution adopting the final 2019 budget of the Point Roberts Transportation Benefit District. Is there a staff report on this? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. There's no one signed up. Does anybody wish to speak on this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Ms. Brenner moves approval. Mr. Buchanan seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. Next item up is an ordinance authorising the levy of taxes for the conservation futures purposes for 2019, AB 2018-327. Is there a staff report? No? And there was no one signed up for the public hearing. Does anybody wish to speak on this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Mr. Donovan moves to approval. Is that second, Mr. Buchanan? Mr. Buchanan seconds. Any discussion? Ms. Brenner?
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. It's my recollection, too, this is also no increase in tax except for some new, if there's new road work. Yeah, okay.
Further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Tim Baloo,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner,
Yes,
Passes 7-0. Next item up is a public hearing on the ordinance authorising the levy of 2019 property taxes for county road purposes AB 2018-328. Is there a staff report? No, and there was no one signed up for the public hearing. Does anybody wish to speak on this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve?
move approval.
Brenner moves approval.
Second.
Mr. Sidhu seconds. Any discussion? Mr. Donovan?
I'm just trying to preempt Ms. Brenner because I think she's going to say that this is another time when we're not having a tax increase.
Well, you beat me to it.
Okay. Well, and
Except
this,
if it's new stuff.
yeah, no, and I'm going to speak against this ordinance. I support the budget, but we had this discussion in the budget meeting, weeks of budget meetings, that, and even our last budget cycle, that I still think we are facing revenue challenges with the budget that we have, even though I'm going to support it. And I think this would have been an opportune time to take the 1% or even 0.5% to fund a patrol deputy or to fund the trial services, pretrial services things that we are putting into the budget. And I will continue to speak on behalf of trying to get county staff back up to the levels it was before the recession. And so I'm going to oppose this, but I support the budget even though we don't take even 0.5%, which would cost $1.40 a year for a household of worth $300,000.
Further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
No.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Tim Baloo, Barbara Brenner,
Yes,
Red Brown,
Yes. That passes 6-1 with Mr. Donovan opposed. Next item up is an ordinance authorising the levy of taxes for county-wide emergency medical purposes for 2019, AB 2018-329. Is there a staff report? Nope. There was no one signed up for the public hearing. Does anybody wish to speak on this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to approve?
well, I'll move to approve.
Back.
I want to speak to it.
Ms. Brenner moves to approve. Mr. Donovan seconds. Ms. Brenner?
Just want to beat Todd to the punch. This is a zero tax increase, too.
Which I support.
Rebuttal, Mr. Donovan?
No, I support this.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Tim Baloo,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner,
Yes,
Red Brown, Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Okay. Next item up is an ordinance limiting the 2019 general fund property tax levy, AB 2018. Is there a staff report? Seeing none, there was no one signed up for this. Does anybody wish to speak to this issue? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And is there a motion to approve?
Which one are we on? Item 8.
Ordinance limiting the 2019 general fund property tax levy.
Oh,
I'll move approval.
I'll second. Because,
What are you looking at me like that for?
no, because my discussion, I thought when I made my little vote against, apparently, the road,
Yeah.
yeah, it was my, I won't undo my vote, but I would have supported that. We have a second, I can talk now, right?
I will second that.
Okay.
You already did.
Yeah, what I just said about the property tax was not related to the road fund, it was related to the general property tax fund, which this one does. I was 2 steps ahead, apparently.
You want to change your previous vote? Okay.
It'll just take time, but,
Further discussion? Seeing none, so Mr. Donovan doesn't like roads, but does like, no, we'll find out.
I don't want to go back to the road one, but yeah, I would have voted for that one.
Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Todd Donovan,
This one, no.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Tim Baloo,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
That passes 6 to 1 with Mr. Donovan opposed.
And for the record, I would have voted yes on item 5, but I don't want to go back and do all that again.
Okay, item 8, ordinance authorizing the levy of taxes for county and state purposes in Whatcom County, Washington for the year 2019, AB 2018-331. Is there a staff report? No, there was no one's, I'm going to open the public hearing. There was no one signed up. Does anybody wish to speak on this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. What's the wishes of the council?
Move approval.
Second.
Mr. Buchanan moves approval. Mr. Donovan seconds. Discussion, Ms. Brenner.
Yeah, this also is a 0 increase in taxes, except for new construction, stuff like that. Anything new is all.
Further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Tim Baloo,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
That passes 7 to 0. Next item up is an ordinance authorizing the 2019 Whatcom County Unified Fee Schedule, AB 2018-332. Is there a motion, is there a staff report? No. Is there, open the public hearing, there was no one signed up. Does anybody wish to speak to this issue? Being none, I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve?
Mr. Donovan moves to approval. Mr. Buchanan seconds. Any discussion? Ms. Brenner?
Well, I hate to do this, but I'm speaking against this, I'm voting against it. There were a number of fee increases in certain areas, and I'm not going to take a chance on anybody thinking I'm getting personal here, but they were the areas that I feel are being picked on already. And was that, wide enough for you guys? And I don't think it's fair. It's seems to be targeting certain parts of the county, and I don't think that's right. So I'm not supporting the unified fee schedule. If you want me to get specific, I will.
Highly up to you, Ms. Brenner. You have,
Yeah, it's up to you.
unless you want to add, I have a question. Could someone please explain to me what happens if we don't vote for this now? Are we mandated to vote for it now?
Our old fee schedule stands
Stands.
until amended by the council. We
Okay.
typically do this on a yearly basis, and the departments go through and analyze their relative costs associated with the fees, look at what other counties are doing, so on and so forth, to keep up with it. So the changes have been presented to you and are included in there.
Right. But there's not any statutory requirement that we have to approve this. And we can only approve it once a year. Can we amend this any time we want during the year? Yes, okay, fine. Ms. Brenner?
Yeah, I would also like to add, we have not had any kind of, in-depth discussion on those changes either. We got the list showing us, and that's it. And I don't think that's, I know times when we've gone through the changes one by one and made sure that they're justified.
Right. So I will speak in favour of approving this now, but I'm going to ask that we revisit this early in the year, and I'll explain my reasoning. I think there is opportunities in the jail unified fee schedule to have a more humane approach to what we're doing. And I'll give you one example, is at the moment, there's a jail booking fee for $116, which doesn't list here that it can be waived, which would be appropriate if the person was indigent and otherwise unable to pay. So I would like to spend some time next year in the next council session revisiting some of these.
We'd be more than happy to have the different departments that are associated with these fees be available when it gets onto the council agenda during the day to discuss this. So if it's the sheriff related to the jail, or it's planning and development services related to their field, I would like to have the department heads available to do that. And we have no problem with that at all. But and then if council wishes to make changes, more than happy to work with you on that.
Right. And for me personally, my only area I'm concerned about is the fees related to the jail and the capacity of the person to pay. Ms. Brenner?
Well, there's a whole lot of changes in lots of places. I agree with you on the jail part, but there's so many other ones, and there is no way that they look justified unless we get that discussion. And that discussion has always happened before we do it. It's a whole lot harder to undo something than to do it right in the beginning. And it won't hurt anything to leave it the stuff the way it was and have that discussion. This budget, in my opinion, has been rushed through, and I think we need that time to go over unified fee schedule items.
Mr. Byrd?
I'd just like to know, is there a reason, since there is not a deadline, that we are considering approving this tonight without having any kind of formal conversation in committee or presentation on this beforehand?
Well, we can certainly have a conversation now, or the council could vote to hold this. I'm personally happy to, with the rest of the changes, and I'm
I
happy to
move that we
revisit.
hold this until it can be reviewed in committee after the first of the year.
That's a motion. Do I have a second for that motion?
Second.
Ms. Brenner seconds. Discussion on Mr. Byrd's motion to hold. Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Can I have the ayes? I couldn't tell. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. That passes 4-3 with Buchanan.
Vote, so I don't know.
Sorry?
Oh, now that it already did it, and you can support it, that's nice.
Let's do the vote again.
Time I volunteered no, so.
Okay, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those no say no. No. So that passes, the motion passes with Buchanan, Brown and Donovan opposed. Okay. Next item up is, and so I think the thing is, can we reschedule, or can we schedule a discussion early in the year?
And I would appreciate the council getting to it relatively quick. There is the one fee that's in there that's new would be the technology fee for paying for the surcharge on the new software that we're buying, and the fee will cover our maintenance costs on a yearly basis. So that's for planning and development services, health, that is one new consideration. It doesn't need to be passed tonight, and I don't have a problem with that, but I would not like to lose the whole year of that potential $120,000 worth of revenue that the council has previously discussed in the last couple of years of getting that implemented so that we can pay for that ongoing implementation of the software contract.
Who has charged that fee?
It's a surcharge going on top of building permits, development permits, all the different
Okay,
permits.
right.
And we've worked with the Building Industry Association, let them know where we're going, and the benefits of having the software and having the online integration into the permit system makes it valuable to them. And I think although nobody likes to pay additional fees to make that happen, is it does work for us to be able to pay for the ongoing software, because that's an expensive system.
So if we don't, so it sounds like if we don't pass that, we're going to give up at least a month's revenue, which sounds like it's about $10,000. So,
It already happened. The vote was taken.
Mr. Sadhu.
Does this expire, or it is ongoing until we change?
It's an ongoing fee that would be established with the new unified fee schedule.
No, if we don't adopt the new
If
one.
we don't adopt the new one, it's not implemented.
So, and does it has a limit that it has to be done before the end of the year?
No, it
So-
does not
so
have to be. So
relatively-
all I'm saying is if, you know, last meeting in December is like the 4th. If we
Yeah.
get to it late January, early February, it's not going to be any material impact on a $90 million budget, but it is something that we need to
Oh,
get
I
to.
just wanted to know that, do we have to do it before the end of the year? Okay.
Ms. Brenner.
Well, I just want to remind council members, there was an opportunity at many stages for the different departments to bring forward their recommended changes. It's not like, oh, you know, we can't do this, it's our fault. There's no fault here on the council's part. We deserve to have the presentations on those increases before we vote on them.
Okay, so if there's no will to change, to resubmit it, it stands and we move on to the next item. Okay. All right, next item up is an ordinance adopting the final 2019-2020 Whatcom County Budget, AB 2018-305A, and for everybody's attention, it is this coloured copy here. All right, is there a staff report?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to, administration, I'd like to thank the council for the work that they've done on it in the last couple months. As identified this morning, all of the changes that the council made through their council of the whole workshops are incorporated into the amended document that you have, along with the technical corrections that you were made aware of this morning. And I'd be encouraged if you passed it as submitted, and we'll work cooperatively in the next biennium to carry out the mandates that are identified into the budget, including capital projects and the hiring of the staff that is incorporated into it to do the work on behalf of the citizens of the county. So thank you so much, and encourage your approval.
Thank you very much. There was no one signed up, sorry, I'm going to open the public hearing. There was no one signed up. Does anybody wish to speak on this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. What's the wish of the council?
Move to approve.
Second.
You guys doing a duet? So that was, all right, I think it was Donovan first, followed a microsecond by Mr. Buchanan. Is that right?
Nanosecond.
Nanosecond. All right, so Donovan moves approval, Mr. Buchanan seconds. Ms. Brennan.
Well, I want to preface this by saying I'm pleased that the council supported some of my requests for additional funding. But there was no support for my proposals to cut, and I took it very seriously that when we want to propose stuff, we're supposed to look for places to offset and to cut. And I'm going to bring up some of my, I won't go through every one of them because it's been so many times they'll bore you, but I am going to bring up a few that are major that would save us a whole lot of money, and we would still have no change in what on the ground work. So my first one, and the Parks Director is sitting here, and I want to say I think he's a wonderful person, and I've always appreciated him, but I do believe we should dissolve the Parks Department and put it into Public Works as a division of Public Works. I believe that almost every, if not everyone, but almost every single request from Parks this year has been for capital projects. Those are, generally speaking, under the directive of the Public Works Department. And we have overlapping, and I do believe that it's important to eliminate the top heaviness and put it into Public Works. And I would like to remind council members, I've said this before, other counties have done this. They have Parks Division as part of their Public Works Department. So this is not anything new or different. You'd have the same frontline people out there that you have now. You wouldn't lose that. And I just feel like, you know, we have been told here in executive session and everywhere how things are getting tighter, things are getting tighter. It was done in an effort to have us cut back on some of our requests. But I think it's more important that we offset what we did, which I do support, with some of these cuts that are not going to be felt on the front line. And I especially want to say that the deputy position is a perfect one. You can't just eliminate deputies and not expect that there's an impact, a negative impact felt from the areas where those deputies are not available or easily available. So I'm saying that because we did get the deputy position, and I'm glad. Unfortunately, I don't believe we can afford a separate Parks Department. And I do believe that if we're going to, you know, pull our belts in and keep things tighter and tighter, which I keep hearing, that we have to be doing some of these things. I know I've brought this up in the past about doing this, and I was kind of stunned that one of the council members said, well, we're going to need time to think about this and work on this. But I brought this up 2 years ago, and I brought it up 4 years ago, and I brought it up 6 years ago, and I've brought it up every time we've had a budget for a long time now. And I know that at least that, except maybe for Councilmember Ballew, I think, and Councilmember Byrd, everybody else was there at the last time I brought this up. And if anyone had concerns they wanted to go into in more depth, to me it's kind of like a simple request, and it's not rocket science. It's about removing some top-tier employees to keep frontline employees and fold it in to be able to be done without duplication from Public Works. I think it's very important. I think now's the time to do it. So that's my first motion, is to fold in the Parks Department as a division of Public Works.
Mr. Sadoo and then Mr. Donovan.
I just want to,
I think she had a motion.
That's a motion.
That was my motion.
Oh, sorry, I missed the motion. Would you restate the motion?
My motion is to put Public Works into the, not as a separate department, but as a division of Public Works, into the Public Works Department, eliminating the top tier of management and keeping the frontline people.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Mr. Byrd.
I 100% agree with Councilwoman Brenner. I think that is a very wise choice. I think it would save us $800,000 or more. And when we're sitting here looking at a budget that's going from $86 million this year to $92 million based on additional spending, it's something that we should be looking at is where can we cut, where can we optimize? And this isn't a cut, it's a merge that would optimize departments and remove excessive middle management and overhead that would not affect what the average community member sees as they participate in the Parks Department. So I will second that and support it 100%. I think it was smart. Thank you.
Discussion on this motion. Seeing none, all in favor of Ms. Brenner's motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
no.
I think that was 5 noes. That fails 5-2 with Brenner and Byrd opposed. Ms. Brenner, Mr. Sadoo is next, and then Mr.
Yeah,
Donovan.
I just want to thank the council and the representatives from the Eastern County for their persistence and showcasing for almost last 6-7 months the issues in their community, and working with sheriff that we do have a new deputy in the new budget, and we are leaving more to the sheriff, like we did say 51%, but I think they know the best how to do that. But I just say that the public representation or activism or or persisting on their needs does help, and appreciate your time and the effort in doing so.
Mr. Donovan?
I would first just want to make sure that myself personally, but I think it's a sense of the council, thank the deputy executive and the executive and all the time they put in to take the council priorities that we threw in sometimes after expected deadlines and found ways to make this work in the budget. I think we ended up like at least $1 million apart, but at the last minute, working collaboratively, they found ways to fund the pretrial services program, which we hope is going to increase incarceration. Found funding for Mr. Brown's ID access program, for the storage locker proposal by Mr. Sadoo, for Ms. Brenner's Firewise education program, which I think we've just followed things in the last couple of weeks. You can see how important something like that is. We got an extra patrol deputy in the budget, hopefully dedicated mostly to the East County. We staffed a consultant to help the Climate Advisory Committee update our climate impact plan, which I think is incredibly important and also could help us save some money in the future. That's kind of what we've been working on the last couple weeks. I appreciate you folks doing that. I think we differ. Councilmember Brenner thought we should fund that by cutting staff. I don't see that there's a lot of folks in Public Works that have the time to pick up the slack with what Parks is doing, but we could differ on that. I would have maybe liked to have funded it with a little bit more revenue, but we don't all get what we want in a budget, and I think y'all did a great job, so I support it.
Ms. Brenner?
Well, before I make my next motion, I wasn't done, guys. I do want to say that my motion to put the Parks Department under Public Works as a division would not have cut any frontline people. And so you've already got an incredible management at Public Works anyway, but I do think that it's time for us to figure out, how to do things, especially when they overlap that much, and I won't go any further. My next motion is to cut the additional solid waste staff position. I just don't think it's necessary. I know it came through some committees, but I don't think it's necessary. And one of the things we heard about in executive session was the impact of staff people in different bargaining groups will have on the budget. And I think that we need to be thinking about that. And I don't think we need an extra solid waste position. If I was queen and I was in charge, I would change a little bit of how the current staffing is delegated. That's what I would do. But of course I'm not, so all I can do is say no. That's my motion.
So there's no motion, correct?
My motion was to... Second. Oh, that was a second.
To make Barbara queen?
My motion is to not approve, to remove the request for the additional solid waste staff position.
You're seconding that motion, Mr. Bird?
Absolutely.
Okay. Discussion. Mr. Bird?
To Ms. Brenner's point, the presentation was that our quickest escalating cost right now is staff and overhead. And so adding additional overhead is something that we should do, I think, very intentionally. And it's something that we should only do when we absolutely have to. Government is not here to employ people. We're here to be fiscally responsible with taxpayer funds. And I think that the fiscally responsible thing to do would be to remove that position from the budget.
Further discussion. Ms. Brenner?
Yeah, I just want to make one slight clarification. I think it is our job as the legislative and the executive branches to make sure that we do hire really good public servants. I just don't want to get to a point where we've gotten to before we had to lay people off. And it sounds like it's getting close to that now, and I don't like how it sounds. So I want to make sure we keep things steady so we don't have to do that, because I don't want to lose the good people we have.
Further discussion on this motion. Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
No. I'm no. I was,
No.
5 noes, I assume, and
I'm reading wrong.
I'm just surprising you. I gave you all my,
We've done this in committee.
yeah, okay.
But-
And-
no, Ms. Burnett, you're not surprising us, but we have already discussed these items before.
Well, but I'm trying again. Because I think it's important when we want more, that we find other places that we can tweak so that it doesn't, and I don't want to support a tax increase. So, to me, the other choice is you find places to cut.
So I didn't announce the results of that last vote was 5-2 with Brenner and Bird opposed. Mr. Sadhu, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so I just want to talk about one more thing. I think we had that discussion several times during the budget discussions and I just want people at home to know that too, that I have made a request to the administration to be able to track all the money we are spending on repairing the jail and all other costs, which are additional costs for personnel, extra superintendent or overtime and everything, because I want people to be able to know that that at some point of time we should be able to pull that number and it should be available to the public, and the administration has promised that they will have the ability to bring that number out, not only on the capital side, but also on the personnel or operations side, how it has increased their cost. That's it.
Ms. Brenner.
My other motion that I want to bring out again is I would like to remove the recommended additional personnel in the assessor's office. And I believe that, I mean, I'm sure there could be a need for it, but this was a position that was cut during the hard times in 2008 or 9 or whenever it was. And to be bringing back a position after we've been told how tight things are getting, I don't think is, I don't think it's prudent. And I don't think we should be reinstating that position right now. So my motion is to remove it from the budget.
So Ms. Brenner's made that motion. Is there a second? Mr. Bird, did you second? Yep. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
No.
Was that a no, Mr. Donovan?
Yeah, I was just saying I got it right that time. We're just
Taught him how to do it this time?
monitoring him.
Okay, good, thank you.
Somebody's got to.
That fails 5-2 with Brenner and Bird opposed. Now we're back to the original motion unless there's amendments, further amendments. Ms. Brenner.
Tyler asked me today, he goes, what are you going to do? Because it's been so long, if ever, that I've supported a budget. And I really wanted this time to be the one, because I think it was really great, the things that the council did approve. But I just have a problem adding to the size of the budget rather than, you know, making sure that we offset it one way or another. And I wasn't going to support a tax increase, so I think maybe if I'd gotten 1 or 2 of my cuts, I would have and could have supported it. I hate to disappoint Tyler. I'm sorry. I can't support it this way, and I really hope that at some point in the very near future, everybody starts talking about where we can tighten up, instead of us getting a budget at what I consider kind of the last minute with everything that the executives or the administration felt like they wanted. And then we look like the bad guys for adding more stuff to that. That's not, I mean, when they say that we have to receive our budget by such and such a date, that's the last possible date. That doesn't mean we couldn't get it sooner. And I've always felt like we should be getting some of this along the way so we can comment and make decisions without having it kind of come to us that way. In fact, if you guys don't think this was a last-minute thing, I don't ever remember a time where we did unified fee schedule changes without being told specifically why we're doing each one. So maybe I'm wrong, but I don't remember that ever happening. So I'm not comfortable with the way this budget has come through, and I'm not going to support it the way it is.
Further discussion on the main motion to approve the budget. Mr. Byrd.
I'll speak against it as well. Again, we're going from $86 million that we budgeted in 2018 to $92 million today. I really feel like this came down to more about, did we get money for our own individual projects, than are we doing the right thing and really spending the money that we have well? And that bothers me. I think that we cannot continue to sustain such huge increases in the amount of money that we're spending. And whether it's the flood budget that we saw last year that used up all the reserves and then came back for a tax increase, or the tax increase on this water district that we're adding out there on Lake Whatcom, or this 7% or 6% increase in the general fund expenditures. This is a ton of money, and I would much rather us start looking at ways that we can better spend funds than just more things we can spend funds on. So,
Further discussion on the main motion to approve the budget. Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Barbara Brenner,
No.
Red Brown.
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
no.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Tim Baloo,
Yes.
That passes 7-2 with Byrd
5-2.
Sorry, 5-2, you're correct. 5-2 with Brenner and Byrd opposed.
Finding votes. Finding votes. It's a bad election joke.
Oh, I'm double counting.
He's young, he can come up with these quick ones.
Okay, next item up is the open public session. During the open session, audience members can speak to the council on any issue not scheduled for public hearing previously. Each speaker should state his or her name for the record and optionally include city of residence. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to address the council. Council staff will keep track of the time limits and inform speakers when they have 30 seconds left to conclude comments. I had no one signed up, I don't believe. So if anybody wishes to speak, please come up to the podiums. Please come up to both podiums and be ready to speak the moment the person on the other podium has ceased. So please come up to the podiums. Yep.
Teresa Sigatow, South Fork Valley. One issue is I'd like to, I've been currently in the Sheriff Citizens Academy, which I finished tonight. That's why I've not been here with the budget presentation. And I do apologize for the last moment, but I do want to submit the sheriff's supplemental budget information that he already gave you on that. One of the things I found out since this academy went every Tuesday since September, I highly encourage the council to attend because of the vast knowledge that we have gotten from the different parts of the sheriff's office. One of the things that I found out, there are 51 identified different gangs in Whatcom County. 51 identified gangs. So bear that in mind. Also, right now, we need 10 more deputies in Whatcom County. 10 more. We need 2 more on every shift, and that constitutes 10 deputies. Well, that does not include the additional need for a lieutenant in the patrol. We're down to 1, which is atrocious. What happens if that person has ill health? And also the fact that we need to have a more prudent use of extra funds that are available And your charge is to preserve and protect the citizens of Whatcom County. By understaffing the sheriff's office, you are not meeting your charge. I also support Councilman Brenner's and Bird's comments about looking for things that could be streamlined. There is no excuse for passing a budget with this big of an addition without having avenues that you could take away from. That's not being fiscally responsible on the county council.
30 seconds, please.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, by the way, on completing the course tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Please proceed.
Hi, I'm Hannah. Good to see you guys again. We feel it is important to be at every council meeting until issues surrounding Cherry Point, the fossil fuel moratorium, and Resolution 2018-015 are resolved. It is important that you all understand our level of commitment. There is an anti-industrial and anti-fossil fuel sentiment sweeping through local governments in Washington state, and currently you are one of the prime examples. There are long-term consequences to overregulating our industrial areas. To us, those consequences can be devastating to our families. There will be no green industry if you drive away the current industry. We, part of the Washington State Building and Construction Trades Council that represent over 50,000 members in Washington State and over 60 construction-related labor organizations, what are you doing as it relates to Cherry Point has our complete attention. Regarding any regulatory changes you enact for Cherry Point, we need to be convinced that you are working closely and in good faith with Cherry Point companies and the union workers that work at Cherry Point. If we all truly work together, we could do a lot of good for the people of Whatcom County. Thank you, and you guys have a happy Thanksgiving.
Sorry, could you state your name for the record?
What was that?
No, she just gave your first name.
Hannah Holt.
Hannah Holt, thank you.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Allison Calder, Point Roberts. I'm sure you're tired of seeing us, and you may not agree with everything we have to say. But when I was an entitlement specialist and a permit expediter for many years across King, Snohomish, Pierce, and Whatcom County, working for companies such as Weyerhaeuser and PSE, the best advice I ever received was actually from Wayne Harrison here in Whatcom County. He told me, I don't want your opinion, I want facts. Show me by code. I have tried to continue to use his advice throughout this process, and it does get frustrating when you pose a question and the answer I get is not by code. It is an opinion. Mr. Bird has mentioned that as well. We have continually submitted information to the staff and council that is fact and code-based. It is not just an opinion that setting a high level of mandated service as a fee on tax-based system will not reduce garbage going into our landfills. It has actually been verified by the Department of Ecology that this type of system creates no economic incentive to recycle. The contract with Can Do, which, by the way, that's not its legal name, it's Freedom 2000 LLC, so the contract's actually wrong, allows for taxpayers to be paying for a service that they may not use. There is no financial oversight for it by the county that if it turns out that Can Do does not end up picking up the estimated 54,600 cans of garbage per year, that they get to keep the excess revenue. And then the next year, the UTC will reduce the rate. I spoke to the UTC and asked them what happens when they review from January through June, when they review that in August or September. If for some reason the minimum level of service has not been met, and it is apparent that they are going to receive too much income, because it is a tax-based system, which we are being pre-billed on our taxes, they cannot adjust the rate until the following year. I asked what happens if for some reason, because the mandate is so high, it turns out that they make a 30% profit instead of the 6% profit. The UTC says, that's just what happens. We adjust the next year to make sure that the following year, they will only make their 6% profit. There is no checks and balances for the community to receive that money back. So we are actually
30 seconds,
asking
please.
for you to go back, I know it's difficult, and change the ordinance to where it's equal with the rest of the county. Either make it so it's a smaller amount, or be like everywhere else in Washington State, where it's not on your taxes, we have to have service, we get billed by the provider. Then if the UTC says, wait, the rate's still too high, within 30 days of them doing that tariff review, the rate will change. Then the company does not end up making an excessive amount of funds.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's anybody else who wishes to speak, please come down. Otherwise, we'll close the public session after these two.
Hi again, I'm Judy Wilson, and I live in Bellingham. It's good to see you all. Yes, I'm here to talk about Cherry Point. The pursuit of clean air, clean water, and public safety are obviously vitally important. But as you know, industrial regulations are complex. You must always think through the unintended consequences when changing those regulations. That is why it is critical that you work very closely with Cherry Point companies. Also, most of this council appears have broader motivations and want to restrict the growth of the energy industry and industry in general, thinking that this somehow supports some broader future green agenda. The problem with this is there is no agreement on what that means. What is green today can be verboten tomorrow. This creates an uncertain and volatile regulatory climate. Businesses avoid uncertainty, and we need business to implement our green industrial future. Cherry Point has a bright green industrial future. Let's work together to realize that potential. Good night and have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Louise Cassidy, Point Roberts. I'm sure you've recognized me from all my emails to you. I'm here tonight to talk to you about the excise privilege tax that is being charged on our garbage for curbside pickup. I've sent you all the email with all the explanations of how this all works, and the discrepancy I'm coming up with is the $8.50 a ton that the provider pays based on the garbage that he picks up, and the 2.91% tax that I pay on the garbage that I supposedly am going to drop off. I have a real issue that there's no reconciliation between these two numbers. The tax I pay and the tax that is remitted is never matched up. There's no checks and balances. I've asked the Treasury Department, I've asked the Finance Department, I've asked you guys, I've asked the Health Department, and nobody seems to be able to explain to me why or how this ever gets reconciled. The reason is a grave concern going forward is that now I'm going to be paying taxes on imaginary garbage. I don't have 2 2-gallon cans of garbage a month. I have one 20-gallon can. And in fact, this Monday, it was only half full because I recycle. And I don't have that, I just don't have that garbage. So I'm going from paying $50 a year for self-haul to over $200 a year mandated on garbage I'm never going to use, but I'm getting taxed on it. And nobody seems to know how I'm going to get reimbursed for that excess tax. It's not like the state tax. The state tax gets charged on my bill, gets remitted by the service provider. There's nothing tied to tonnage. But under your code, 8.13.03, you have to charge, everybody has to pay the $8.50 a ton. And then under 81304, it says that the provider can charge it, but it's really ambiguous. There's no figures on how this all comes about. It's just, I'm being seriously overtaxed, and I don't think that that's fair, along with everything else. So my request is that an audit be undertaken to reconcile what has been paid by
30
customers.
seconds, please.
And is actually the same amount as remitted to the county treasurer. And I also request that the ordinance 8.10.04D be removed. It's excessive and unfair to the community of Point Roberts. And to quote Ms. Brenner, sort of, almost, it's a whole lot easier to do it right than to try and undo it. Thank you.
Ken Calder, Point Roberts. I appreciate hearing that Mr. Ballou said that he tried to do the right thing for all of the residents of the county, and I'm sure you all do. We listened to the Finance Committee meeting earlier today, and Ms. Brenner was correct when stating that you can have more than one garbage district in a county. Under RCW 36.58.100, the legislative authority of any county with a population of less than 1 million is authorized to establish one or more solid waste districts within the county for the purpose of providing and funding solid waste disposal services. The county legislative authority may modify the boundaries of the solid waste disposal district by the same procedure used to establish the district. Notice of mandatory collection, Whatcom County Code 8.11.030. At least 60 days prior to the date of implementation of mandatory solid waste and recycling collection, the Solid Waste Division shall provide reasonable notice to all residences and businesses that mandatory collection will be implemented. We haven't received any notice from the Solid Waste Division that this is going forward on January 1st. So we haven't received our 60 days notice. Removing the ability to obtain an exemption does not remove our right to be notified. It would be even more prudent to be notifying the approximately 1,800 properties that have been exempt under the seasonal provision of Whatcom County Code 8.10. If the fee is not put on taxes, the UTC could do a rate review within 30 days of it ever being looked into, as was stated. It could be reviewed every 6 months, not or more often, and be more reasonable. Point Roberts property owners want to be treated equally with the rest of unincorporated Whatcom County rather than being penalized and held to a 3.5 times higher level of service. Point Roberts already pays over 2 times the rate for disposal of refuse. We pay 14.5 cents a pound at the local transfer station to cover their costs for trucking the refuse out through the 2 borders. All the recycling already heads to Canada, so there is cheaper disposal costs and getting money back. Here in Ferndale
30 seconds,
at Republic, it's 6.5 cents a pound versus our 14.5 cents a pound. Yes, there is an aquifer right near the transfer station. It's an adjacent 3-acre parcel owned by the local water district, and that should be looked into. I am requesting that the consent agenda, item 14 under other items, the contract with Can Do, be considered separately, as the insurance form is in the name of Freedom 2000
Time.
LLC. And thanks.
Thank you.
Please proceed, and if anybody else wishes to speak, please come down, otherwise we'll be closing after the last 2 speakers. Please proceed.
My name is Rochelle Hollowell, that's Hollowell, and I live in East County, Maple Falls, Kendall area. And I want to thank all of you for passing the, for passing the budget for us to get another sheriff's deputy out there, another neighborhood sheriff's deputy. We really do need this person, and I want to thank you guys for doing that for us. And we still also need street lights, and we'll probably be back to talk to you about that. But at least we got the sheriff's deputy, which is going to hopefully make a big difference. And so now when someone calls 911, we're not waiting 30 to 45 minutes for someone to come out. We can get a response within 5 or 10 minutes. So thank you.
Okay. And again, if there's no one else after yourself, then
Hi.
we'll close the public hearing.
My name is Ivy Little, and I'm also from Kendall, Washington, Maple Falls area, East County. I've told a couple of councilmen, I think, how I originally started here. And it's because I went to Kendall Watch to tell them that I was pretty upset what was going up there in Kendall area, why things weren't getting done and how come all this crime and people getting away with stuff. I stated in that meeting that I thought the sheriff was lazy. And I meant that because I just couldn't believe what was going on up there. And I've lived in Whatcom County all my life, and I remember when there was over 200 sheriffs running around Whatcom County, and that kind of changed, and I don't know why. So anyway, one day, I had this knock at the door, and there was Lorraine sitting there, Jason, saying, "You call me lazy?" And I says, "Well, I didn't call you lazy, but if you want me to, I will." I said, "I'm really upset at what's going on, especially what's going on across the street from me, all the other things that are happening." So I said, "What is the problem?" He says, "Well, let me tell you, how would you like to go in some of these places that are pretty dark and bad, and I don't have anybody up here? I have to wait just as long as the rest of you guys do for help." And I said to him, "Well, what do you need for me to do?" He just looked at me and he says, "I would like to have another deputy." And I said, "Okay, I will help with that." And that's how I've come to you guys to help Jason, because I really understand of not wanting to go into certain situations and be alone, especially when some of them are full of junk and some of them are so dark you have no idea what's in there. And being by yourself, and a lot of times they don't have backup even with their radio or cell phone, because they're trapped in that situation like we are with our cell phones. So I'm happy that Jason's going to
30
get some
seconds,
help.
please.
And I thank you all for being here, and I hope everybody has a Thanksgiving, good Thanksgiving. I'm sorry to see you go. You're a pretty nice guy. Thank you all.
Thanks, Eddie.
All right, seeing no one else, we will close the public hearing and hand it over to Finance. Mr. Sadhu.
All right, these are the next items on the agenda are the consent agenda. There are 8 items on the consent agenda, and first item received vote 2-1, and the rest of the items received a committee vote of 3-0, and I so move to approve item number 1 through 8.
So we've got a motion to approve items 1 through 8. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 6-0 with Mr. Bird absent.
Well, out of the room.
Out of the room. Natural Resources.
Natural Resources.
Natural Resources had an update today, we had a discussion about the amendments to the Purchase of Development Rights Program, essentially renaming the program to have more emphasis on conservation elements of that. And the committee recommended 3-0 to the full council that we adopt the ordinance amending the PDR program, AB 2018-235.
Motion to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Aye.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Tim Baloo,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
That passes 6-0 with Mr. Bird opposed. Next, back to Finance.
Okay, back to Finance. The next item is ordinance amending 2018 Whatcom County Budget 14th request in the amount of $5,501,518, AB 2018-318. And it received a 3-0 vote in the committee, and I so move for approval.
Been moved for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
Consent.
Tyler. Tyler.
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Tim Baloo,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes. That passes 7-0.
The next item is ordinance establishing the law library and elections remodel fund and establish a project-based budget to remodel the law library and election space. AB 2018-319, it received 2-1 vote in the committee, and I so move for approval.
It's been moved for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Tyler Bird,
No.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Tim Baloo,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
That passes 6-1 with Mr. Byrd opposed.
The next item is ordinance amending the triage center expansion project budget as established through the ordinance 2017-046 and second request AB 2018-320. This received 3-0 vote in the committee, and I so move for approval.
It's been moved for approval. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Tim Baloo,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
The next item is ordinance establishing the North Lake Samish Road Bridge Number 107 Replacement Fund and establish a project-based budget for the North Lake Samish Road Bridge Number 107 Replacement Fund, CRP number 913006, AB 2018-321. This received 3-0 vote in the committee, and I so move for approval.
Move for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Tim Baloo,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Next item is ordinance establishing the Marine Drive, Locust Avenue to Alderwood Avenue Reconstruction Fund and establishing a project-based budget for the Marine Drive, Locust Avenue to Alderwood Avenue Reconstruction Fund, CRP number 917001, AB 2018-322. This received 2-1 vote in favor in the committee, and I so move for approval.
It's been moved for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Tim Baloo,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
That passes 7-0.
The next item is ordinance amending the Silver Lake Park Improvement Project budget established through the ordinance 2014-077, first request AB 2018-324. And it received 3-0 vote in the committee, and I so move for approval.
It's been moved for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Barbara Brenner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Tim Baloo,
Yes.
That passes 7-0.
The next item is ordinance establishing the Vector Truck Storage Building Fund and establish a project-based budget for the Vector Truck and Equipment Storage Building, AB 2018-325. This also received 3-0 vote in the committee, and I so move for approval.
It's been moved for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Tim Baloo,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner,
Yes.
That passes 7-0.
The next item is ordinance establishing the Public Safety Radio System Fund and establishing a project-based budget to replace the current public safety radio system, AB 2018-326, and this received a 3-0 vote in the committee, and I so move for approval.
Been moved for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird, Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Tim Baloo,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner. Red Brown.
Yes. That passes 7-0.
Next item is the resolution authorizing the county executive through Parks Director Michael McFarland to make application and enter into a grant agreement with the Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office for funding through the Non-Highway and Off-Road Vehicle Activities Program for trail development at South Fork Park in the amount of $200,000, AB 2018-334, and this received 3-0 vote in the committee, and I so move for approval.
It's been moved for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0.
Next item is the request authorization for the county executive to enter into an interlocal agreement between Whatcom County Flood Control Zone District and the Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife to establish and define the obligations and responsibilities relating to ongoing maintenance and repair of the Marine Drive levee and to secure a cost share for the Marine Drive levee repair project in the amount of $30,000, council acting as Whatcom County Flood Control Zone District Board of Supervisors, AB 2018-335. And this also received 3-0 vote in the committee, and I so move for approval.
It's been moved for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0.
Next item is request authorization for the county executive to enter into a grant agreement between the Whatcom County and Washington State Department of Commerce for the acute detox facility project in the amount of $1,950,000, AB 2018-340. This received 3-0 vote in the committee, and I so move for approval.
It's been moved for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0.
The next item is request authorization for county executive to enter into a grant agreement between Whatcom County and Washington State Department of Commerce for mental health voluntary triage center construction project in the amount of $4,950,000, AB 2018-341. This also received a 3-0 vote in the committee, and I so move for approval.
Been moved for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0.
The next item is request authorization for the county executive to enter into a contract between Whatcom County and Can Do Recycling to implement requirements to collect a fee for the service on the Point Roberts property tax bills and remit the fee for service to the service provider as invoiced on every other month basis in the amount not to exceed $475,000, AB 2018-344. This received a 2-1 vote in the committee, and I so move for approval.
It's been moved for approval. Any discussion? Ms. Brenner and Mr. Byrd.
We talked about this in committee, and there's absolutely no incentive for anybody. With this kind of contract, there's no incentive at all for anybody to do any recycling. And I mean, there was mention that even, there were comparisons made during this whole process of Point Roberts with Bellingham and Vancouver, instead of comparing Point Roberts to small isolated areas like the islands. And it just seems like this is not gonna, it's not gonna do what we claimed that we wanted to do by prioritizing reduce, reuse, and recycle. And we talked about, oh, well, we should revisit this. We need to look at this now before we pass this. Again, as somebody quoted me, I forget who it was, it's always easier to do something right the first time than to try and undo what we did. And I do think we should do this. Now is the time. So I'm going to move to table.
Second.
We have a motion to table, supersedes all others. All in favour of the motion to table say aye.
Aye.
Discussion?
Sorry.
Well,
I
first
know,
it's a
motion to table does not
Oh,
encourage.
yeah. Well,
There's
you
no
can
discussion.
talk about the motion to table.
But Robert's rules, there's no discussion on the motion to table.
It-
I bel-
We're still allowed to talk about it, the tabling.
Sorry,
part.
I might be wrong. Let me double check my rules.
You are allowed to talk about it.
Debatable? No, it's not debatable.
Well, it's not debate, the issue is not debatable, but the motion to table,
Motion to table is not
It's not?
debatable.
we should go back to the other rules of order.
But we're on the same rules of order. It's still, that's Sturgis's rules of order.
No, there was one that you could say something about
Motion
the
to table
tabling.
is limited to discussion of date. It was very limited discussion.
Yeah, but there was some.
So you made a motion to table? All in
Yes.
favor of the motion to table, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
That's 5 noes, I believe. That fails 5-2 with Brenner and Bird in favour. Ms. West, now we're back to the main motion, which is to what Mr. Sadhu moved forward. Do you wish to speak on the main motion, Mr. Bird? Please, go ahead.
Actually, I have a question. I heard earlier during public comment that there was a 60-day notice period that was not given. Approving this would obviously push us past that 60-day notice period. What's that legally mean?
Do we have a staff member who could speak to that? Mr. Hedges.
Jeff Hedges, Whatcom County Health Department. Following the 2 years of public process with the Point Roberts Community Advisory Committee, at their request, we conducted a town hall meeting on a Saturday, and at their request, we sent out 2,300 notifications to the public. Following that, on June 5th, when council approved the amended ordinance, there was public process. Following that, the UTC has mailed out 2 notifications to all affected properties, and following the November 30th UTC anticipated approval of the revised tariff, we are going to do another mailing to all affected properties.
Just for clarification, the ones that the UTC mailed out, when were they mailed?
I'm sorry?
The notices that the UTC mailed out informing the public of this, when was that mailed?
The UTC met on October 11th and decided to do a second notification following the notification that had just taken place. That's for 30 days, and that is over, and they're meeting on the 30th.
Ms. Brenner and then Mr. Bird.
Well, it's my recollection that the UTC commented that it appeared that the 60-day notification timeframe was not met. I thought I heard something from that Mr. Cupp from the UTC. He
The
sent
UTC
something
has
out.
done 2 notifications, so they have a separate process, and I'm advised by UTC staff that they are quite satisfied at this point with their public process. And to answer the prior question about our public process, it has been long and diligent with lots of notification.
Mr. Bird, then Ms. Brenner.
I think we have some audience members that are shaking their head in disagreement, and I think I'd like to know why, if it's acceptable to the rest of the council. I think it'd be nice to cover our basis and understand the difference. You have to be called up by the chair, sorry.
What's the wish of the council? All right, please proceed.
Allison Calder. The letter was not sent by the UTC. The letters that were sent out were actually sent by Can-Do. The UTC never sent out any notification, any letters. The only letters that were sent out were by Can-Do. The only letter that was sent out by the county was letting us know that there was going to be a public meeting. Once it was approved in June, there has never been a notice sent out giving us the 60-day notice that it was now going to be mandatory. So that's what we're explaining. And none of the letters have come from the county or the UTC. It's only been from Can-Do, from the service provider.
Ms. Brenner.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I looked at the schedule of when that advisory committee met, and many of those meetings were in the off-season, when the same people that Mr. Hedges wants to put on this were not even there. So I just feel like there was no real attempt at all to include all the types of residents. They probably have more tourist residents than full-time residents in Point Roberts than maybe anywhere else in the county. And there was no attempt to make sure you had a lot more of those meetings when the tourists are there. I just heard a completely different thing from what Allison said compared to what Jeff Hedges has said. And I'm not comfortable. I feel like, we're being told things in a way that we could assume they mean one thing when maybe they don't. And I'm not comfortable with what's going on here.
Mr. Byrd.
I'd like to know that was actually met as a requirement. I mean, that's simply transparency in government, and I think that's one of those big things that we're here to do. I'm curious, I mean, I'm looking at you, I know, but like that would be right on the spot with zero background information and almost impossible, so.
I don't know enough about this process to answer that question. I do know, and in a lot of circumstances, and I don't know if it's the same here, but when our ordinance requires, our code requires notice, that's typically done by the applicant, not by the county. So the fact that the applicant did it in this case doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't legal notice. But again, I don't know enough to comment.
And just before you jump in, and we've had one of the residents up there has confirmed that the applicant did in fact send out the notice.
But didn't say the applicant did it within gave 60 days notice.
Mr. Donovan.
This might be a question for council. So it was said that there might be a flaw in the contract because the contract is with Can-Do Recycling Disposal Services, but the certificate of insurance is made out to Freedom 2000. But then it says below that, DBA Can-Do Recycling and Disposal. Is that that's a normal?
I don't see a problem with that.
I don't see that as a credible claim that it would be a problem.
Okay, further discussion. Thank you. Further discussion?
Oh, I was going to say that since we don't have the letter they Can-Do sent, can somebody tell us what the content was of the letter?
Yes, thank you. I do have the letter with me. For the record, the UTC drafts that public notification and the applicant sends it out. The UTC in the first notification made a mistake. They incorrectly did not include all of the changes in the rates for the commercial dollars that had never been raised since this applicant had started business 10 years ago. So for their process to be diligent, they elected to do a second notification. The UTC admitted their error. They did a second notification that was correct. They gave it to the applicant, who mailed it to his existing customer base as per law. And I have that here, if anyone's interested.
Do you know what date it was mailed? Sorry,
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know. When was the letter sent?
First notification was sent out prior to their October 11th commissioner meeting. At that commissioner meeting, the commissioners, because some of the rates had been missed in the notification that the UTC had drafted, to have a good public process, told their staff to draft another notification to give to the applicant to send out. That notification, which I happen to have, I had in committee earlier today, was sent out for 30 days, and that 30 days is about up, and it will be up before they meet again on the 30th. So I apologize. I had that notification at committee today, but I do not have it now.
Mr. Byrd and then Ms. Brenner.
A moment ago, you said they sent the letter to all existing customers. So what about all the new customers that are being added to the roll? Did they get notice as well?
So
Or was it just the customers he had?
Thank you very much. That's a great question. So in the first notification, okay, the law says that they have to send it to their existing customer base. And the day that they did that, I talked with the applicant and the UTC. And there was an interest in notifying all affected parties, properties, above and beyond the law, which said existing customer base. So I personally paid $2,000 for the next day to have CopySource mail out 2,300 notifications to everybody up there. So the existing customer base was notified twice.
Ms. Brenner?
So you paid out of your own wallet? You said
I
you
had
personally
budget,
paid?
Councilmember Brenner, I had
Okay.
budget to make sure.
So that came out of
that
county
I
tax
made
funds?
sure that we had budget to do the public process that everybody here, I think, expects.
And you said that the letter went out prior to the October meeting, October, when a huge amount, large percentage of people who are going to get these bills aren't even there. But how much sooner before that meeting did it go out?
It's required to go out for 30 days to the public, 45 days if you include 2 weeks to the commissioners. That's a UTC process, not our process, but it's just an indication of the many times and the many ways in which we worked really hard to have a good notification.
But see, this is the problem. Point Roberts is different, and you have most of those people who are not even there in Point Roberts at that time. So I don't see, to me, there was no effort to try to make this work for the majority of people who are at Point Roberts. And I just feel like we've already, I mean, I don't have his permission, but I'm gonna almost quote Councilmember Donovan anyway, who says the kind of pickup they're being required to do up there is not gonna incentivize people to recycle. And you compared it to Bellingham, and Bellingham does have I think it's a once a month 20 gallon, something like that. There's nothing, it's two times a month, 32 gallon or something. It's not anywhere like Bellingham, plus it's not Bellingham, it's Point Roberts. And I just feel like a mistake was made. We should correct it before we pass this. This should not go forward.
Sadu? Sorry, Ms. Donovan.
I think that the point of that, if people are not home, that how do we make sure that somebody should go to every home and make sure, are you home? We are sending you a letter. I think that is a little bit overwhelming to make sure, like when county or government, everybody, they send a letter to somebody's home, it is supposedly that they have been informed. Now, how do you verify that were you home or you were on vacation? I think that is a little bit too much to expect that, to work around people's vacation schedule to send a letter. I think that was the letter sent to every household? To me, that meets the threshold of responsibility, not making sure that were you home or not.
Mr. Donovan?
I'm going to speak reluctantly in favor of the motion, I guess. I guess I will. When we did this, I don't know how many months ago, we spent so much time talking about the process and who took a survey and who was at what meetings, and there was a lot of kind of angst directed at staff about all the process, how much public input there was, and I think we were focusing a lot on that, and I actually give credit to staff for the way they did that. And at the same time, we were dealing with this ordinance that was going to require mandatory curbside pickup, which was controversial, and require that the bill would go onto the property tax bill, which is kind of controversial and unusual. And that, and I got my brain wrapped around that stuff. At the same time, when we were doing all that discussion, what I think really didn't get much discussion, except maybe from Ms. Brenner, was the level of service. And I think that the reason I will support this is that in 6 months, the UTC is going to do an audit. We can change that ordinance from before to give an option of once a month, which is what people in Bellingham do. A lot of people in Bellingham have that option. I think that option should exist in Point Roberts. But right now, we move this forward. We look at the audit. And even if regardless, I don't care what the audit says. We reopen that ordinance stuff after a period of months to give more options in terms of what people's level of service would be. At this point, I think it would be put it delicately, too destabilizing to do that right now.
Ms. Brenner?
Well, destabilizing to who? The county or to Point Roberts? I mean, to me, we're supposed to be working in the interests of the Point Roberts residents, not what's more, what's easier to do for the county. And I'm not saying you're doing that, but I do think that is, you know, this whole thing of expediency has been part of this problem. And in response to whoever said, well, they got notified, you know, what are we supposed to do, walk to every door? No, I think I have a really simple solution. You do this kind of stuff in the summer when you know the people are there because of the type of community it is. That seems like a simple way to handle a tourist community like Point Roberts.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favour, say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
That's 2 noes, if I'm correct. Ms. Brenner, so that passes 5-2 with Brenner and Bird opposed. Okay. Next item up is planning and development. Planning and development.
Okay. In planning and development, we had a presentation on the open space, current use. So, and we have a resolution. Resolution approving recommendations on applications for open space current use assessment, AB 2018-313, from 11/7. That passed in committee 3-0.
And for clarification, was there one property removed?
Yeah,
So it was all the, it was,
No, it's gonna be
It
the
was-
purple one, or
Yeah.
what, lavender one.
It has a thing on it about that their change was that they need to provide public access by appointment or however they want to do it.
okay.
Other than
All
that.
right. Any further discussion on this item?
There a motion?
Do I need a motion?
Came out of committee unanimous.
You going to move?
You moved approval.
Right, you move to approve.
Oh, move to approve.
Move to approve. So it's been moved for approval.
What am I-
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Just on that discussion too, I'd like to reiterate what I brought up, which is I think it is time for us to revisit the public benefit rating system for that because it hasn't been reviewed in 23 years, I think, was the statement.
Well, it needs.
So I'd just like to ask for that to occur at some point. All right, next item up is the council appointments to boards, commissions and committees. First is an appointment to fill the vacancy on the Whatcom County Planning Commission. Partial term expires 1/31/21. Applicants must reside in the Whatcom County District 1 or 2, and the applicants are Stephen Jackson and Nick Moss, AB 2018-306.
Move to appoint both, and then we vote on them.
Donovan moves to appoint both, and Mr. Buchanan seconds. We've got 2 choices, and Mr. Buchanan, you're not doing a very good job regulating your partner there. Yeah.
Fell asleep.
Okay. So you want to call or count for it?
Tim Ballou?
Sorry,
Sorry.
discussion.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I'd just like to point out, I remember Nick Moss's application when I read it, because he also applied during the vacancy last November about this time. I'm not aware of the Stephen or Stephen Jackson, but Nick seems to be persistent and very interested in something, so I'm advocating on his behalf for that reason. I don't know him, but.
Ms. Brenner.
Well, they can both be appointed because it's 2 different districts.
No, it's only one.
Oh, I thought that one was in 1 and one was in 2.
It can come from either district,
Okay,
but there's only one position.
so there was only applicants for 1 district. Okay, gotcha.
Further discussion, Mr. Donovan.
I was just gonna point out, Mr. Jackson was on the planning commission and then had to leave because of residency requirements, but now is eligible again, so he has experience on the commission.
Further discussion. Seeing none, would the clerk please call the count?
Tim Baloo,
Mr. Moss.
Barbara Brenner,
Moss.
Red Brown,
Jackson.
Barry Buchanan,
Jackson.
Tyler Bird,
Moss.
Todd Donovan,
Jackson.
Satpal Sidhu,
Jackson.
So my count is 4 for Jackson and 3 for Moss. Do you concur?
correct.
And so the appointment goes to Mr. Jackson. Next item up is an appointment to fill the vacancy of the Whatcom County Lummi Island Ferry Advisory Committee. Vacancy is for a resident or property owner on Lummi Island or county resident who does not live or own property on Lummi Island. It's a partial term ending on the 31st of January 2019, and the applicant is Judy Olson, AB 2018-308. Do I have a motion to appoint?
Move to appoint.
Mr. Donovan moves to appoint. Do I have a second? Ms. Brenner seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
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 Opposed? That passes 7-0. Okay, next item up is executive appointments to boards, commissions and committees. Request confirmation for the county executive's appointment of Sarah Spritzer to the Whatcom County Public Defence Advisory Committee, AB 2018-349. And in this case, we're looking at the lime green version. Here.
I've lost track there.
Do I have a motion to confirm?
I move to confirm the executive's appointment.
Ms. Brenner moves to
Or
confirm.
recommendation.
Do I have a second?
Of Sarah, oops.
Second.
Donovan seconds.
Sarah Spritzer, I wanted to say her name for the record.
Okay. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Okay, next item up is approval of a comprehensive plan amendment to ordinance adopting amendments to the Whatcom County Comprehensive Plan relating to capital facilities, AB 2018-208. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Buchanan moves approval. Any discussion? Oh, sorry, second.
Second.
Mr. Donovan seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Tim Baloo,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Next item up is 4 introduction items.
Move to introduce.
Mr. Buchanan moves to introduce, and 2 of those are in the lime green version, which is different to what's in the
Second.
packet. And then one of them has the AB number is changed to AB 2018-351. Mr. Buchanan has moved approval, and Ms. Brenner has seconded.
Oh, these are.
The 2 green ones.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Okay, committee reports, natural resources.
Natural Resources had a discussion of the Purchase Development Right Program, and we just approved the amendments to that earlier. That was the only thing on our agenda. It was a quick meeting.
Thank you. Finance and Administrative Services.
Well, we had 2 presentations. One was the quarterly report, the third quarter report for the counties, from the county finance department, and it was showing that we are on track with the revenue as well as on the expenses. They're tracking pretty good. And the second thing was we had a semi-annual report from the facilities department on the 4 or 5 major building projects that included one in the jail that they are about to start work on that, changing the locks and that, as well as this courthouse building exterior and a few other projects. That was it, and then that's about it.
Good, thank you. Committee of the Whole had a discussion regarding a possible property acquisition. I think Mr. Donovan has a statement.
As a result of discussion in executive session, I have two motions. First, proposed motion to authorize the county executive acting on behalf of Whatcom County Flood Control Zone District Board of Supervisors to execute an extension to an existing option agreement to purchase property as discussed in executive session, and I so move.
So it's been moved. Do I have a second? Second. Mr. DeBird seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. Mr. Donovan.
Second motion to authorize the county executive acting on behalf of the Whatcom County Flood Control Zone District Board of Supervisors to move forward with and complete acquisition of the property as long as the purchase price of the property does not exceed the amount discussed in executive session. And I so move.
It's been moved by Mr. Donovan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Sadhu seconds. Any discussion?
I just say one thing. And the reason we don't discuss this is because these are property transactions that have to be kept confidential. It looks kind of weird when we're just doing this. So I thought I'd throw that out there.
Good. Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. That passes 6-1 with Mr. Bird opposed. Okay, Public Works.
We had a really interesting presentation by PSE regarding a pilot project they're doing on electric vehicle, regarding electric vehicles. And I made a motion in committee which passed to recommend to the full council that we endorse their pilot project. And it's the yellow one. It's a short letter. And I move that we send this letter to the Utilities and Transportation Commission.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Discussion on sending this letter to the UTC. Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. Do you have anything else from Public Works? Is there anything else from Public Works? No. Fine.
Yes, there was.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, actually, we didn't do that in council the first time, so that was only from the Public Works Committee. So that doesn't come through. It was never a recommendation to the full council. Oh, just mention it?
Just report it out.
Okay, yeah. We had passed a motion to put the word legal in front of immigrants for dealing with healthcare issues in the United States. And it sounded good. I was the one who made the motion. It sounded good to me at the time. And I got a letter of concern from somebody I have a lot of faith in. So because of that, and before the sheriff leaves, I will say that I contacted the sheriff's office and talked to several officials, and they all said pretty much the exact same thing. When you're dealing with health issues, it shouldn't be the status of the person, and that could do more harm than good, and that they have a good working relationship on how to deal with other issues, and this shouldn't be held as one of them. So I felt very comfortable because of what the sheriff's office said, that we shouldn't have that word and didn't need it in there. So I made a motion to remove it, and that passed in committee. And that wasn't something that comes to the council. It was just a committee recommendation to the Public Health Advisory Committee. So it's done.
So you just reminded me, we had asked Ms. Denelhunt to provide us with a letter for the council to sign in support of that, and I don't believe we received a copy, did we?
Yeah, and I emailed her too.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to make a motion. Would the council give me permission to sign a letter in support of that program? Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Mr. Sadhu seconds it. Discussion. Mr. Donovan and then Ms. Brenner.
Yeah, I really appreciate Ms. Brenner. It was a kind of hectic meeting, and getting back to the original request from PHAB, or the Public Health Advisory Board Committee, PHAC. Board. I had it. I was right. Board. PHAB. They wanted to just, I thought in that initial hearing was to come to us and ask, would they like us to ask them to draft a resolution, and then they would bring that resolution to us. So that, I think we're back to there. So the letter that you're talking about would, what would
it's not time for the letter.
It is? Yes, it is. Mr. Sadhu.
Yeah, I wasn't present in that day or in that particular committee when it was discussed. Okay. But my basic question was that, are they prohibited from doing that? Like if somebody is sick and they are providing the health service, or there's a possibility of some kind of infection which can spread, they came to the council to ask their permission to do that. To me, the fundamental question was, are they prohibited offering a medical service to somebody irrespective of the legal status? Like, suppose somebody is visiting here and has TB, or we find out, or has Ebola. I'll just take it to the extreme. You know what I mean? Person is a visitor or not a visitor, illegal. Are they prohibited, health department, to provide the medical help? That was my basic question, was why do they even need that help? So I never got an answer. I did send an email to Rachel Lucy, but we haven't connected yet.
Mr. Donovan, then Ms. Brenner.
Yeah, I think the issue wasn't so much providers denying services, that individuals would be concerned and afraid of seeking services.
Oh.
But again, we never actually had a spokesperson from PHAB talking about what that resolution might look like. It was a request. They were giving some information about some federal policy changes, I believe some policies that would frighten undocumented folks from seeking services. And we left it as they were asking us if we wanted them to draft this resolution. So I was trying to figure out what the letter is that Mr. Brown was talking about.
Okay.
May I respond to Mr. Donovan first, or do you wish to speak?
Huh?
Can I respond to Mr. Donovan first? Do you have the floor, though? If you yield to me, I'll respond, otherwise I
Okay.
won't. Yeah. So my understanding is that the federal government, there's parts within the federal government which are seeking input from county governments, because they're the ones who deliver public health services, about changing the rules. And that was what we were being asked to respond to. And the National Association of Counties, which tends to lean fairly conservative, as I think is my understanding, is adamantly opposed to changing the rules because they believe in providing public health for everybody, irrespective of their legal status. And what the letter is going to do is to respond to the public comment period for the federal government, which closes fairly quickly, and for us to provide a letter supporting the continuation of providing these benefits to everybody, irrespective of legal status. Ms. Brenner.
Well, I not only sent my comments about retracting my vote to the council clerk, I also copied them to Regina Delahunt, Director of the Health Department, and she sent me back a response thanking me, because that meant she was going to go do that. So it is already on its way. It doesn't need I don't care. I'll say, sure, vote for. I'm not sure what we're voting for. We're voting for what we already did, and they're going to bring something specific back to us. But I am convinced, and I hadn't even thought of it at the time. It was one of those crazy days. But I am convinced that it could do more harm than good to not have something like that in place when it deals with health issues. But my concern at the time, I was just thinking, well, I don't want to incentivize people to come over here. We've got plenty of Americans who don't have health care and can't afford it and can't seem to get anybody to even take them as patients. So I just didn't want to cause that kind of thing. But this is about people who are already here. So, and I don't want to see the spread of infectious diseases anyway. I think it's important to keep that open to everybody.
If I might jump in, what is defined as public health is different from what we normally consider to be health care for individuals. So public health is not, for example, dealing with a broken bone. Public health is predominantly issues about water quality, sanitation, communicable diseases, stuff like that, things that are of concern to the entire population, not just to the individual. So,
that's what I thought I said.
Mr. Sadhu, I think you were going to say something. No?
No.
Okay. Mr. Donovan.
I think there were two asks. There was to give them direction to write a resolution, and then there's the letter that you're talking about. They were two different things. as
Correct.
I
My
recall.
understanding, I can't remember the time, can't remember the deadline, but it's coming up very rapidly.
I'm getting it now.
And so I'm
They're already
asking,
doing it. We sent it to them. They're already doing it, is what
Doing
I'm
what?
saying. Working on bringing us a resolution.
okay, but my request, for which I have a second and we are voting on, is for the permission from the council to sign it on behalf of the council if there's not enough time to bring it forward to the council before the deadline.
There is time. We
I
have
don't
plen-
know when the deadline is, unfortunately, Mr.
Well,
Marcus, not here.
you know what? Nothing changed from when we did that, and there wasn't, I don't want to send anything that's got me as part of the council on it without seeing what I'm signing.
Okay, well, then that may mean that we don't send the letter in time, that's my concern.
Well,
I would,
they weren't expecting us to send, to say that. They were expecting to work on it, which they're already doing, because it was only supposed to go through committee. They are already working on it.
Okay.
And they didn't give us a quick deadline.
further discussion on this motion? Mr. Byrd.
I can't foresee voting to support something that we've never seen and we know none of the context of, and that we're debating on what
And our
it actually
legislative
is.
authority.
And now we're all gonna vote to put our names on it and support it. I mean, that doesn't make much sense to me, so I won't support that.
Further discussion on this motion? Ms. Brenner?
Just that everything was fine. We fixed it, it's fine, and now you're going to do some polarization here. Why don't you just leave it alone?
Ms. Brenner, at the last meeting, we asked Ms. Delahunt to come to us with a letter that we could sign in order to, before the deadline for the federal public inquiry date, that we could submit on.
She's going to do that.
Okay, but my understanding, my concern and my motion is, if that deadline is before the next council meeting, I'm seeking permission to sign it on behalf of the council. If it is not before the next council meeting, then I will ask her to present it to the council before the next council meeting. Ms. Brenner?
Maybe I just give the director of the health department a little more credit than you do, that if there was such a tight deadline, she would have either brought it to us sooner or told us that in committee, which she didn't say anything about that. I got back to her in a few days after our meeting. So it wasn't like there was a big, delay.
Okay. Further discussion on this motion? Do you want me to restate the motion, Madam Clerk? Okay, all right. Further discussion on this motion. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
That passes 5-1 with Ms. Brenner opposed and Mr. Byrd has, I guess, departed.
Well, don't put my name on it if it's coming before then.
Planning and development, do we have anything else? Well, our chair has left, hasn't he? Okay, special committee of the whole. There was no special committee of the whole. Is there any other business? We had a letter to the Utilities and Transportation Commission, which is the one we dealt with earlier, correct?
Voted on that.
Yeah.
Yep.
We already did that.
Fine. Council member updates. Mr. Donovan.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Ballou. I didn't say anything earlier, but I wanted to see if you'd last through the meeting before. No, I've learned a lot working with you in terms of the respect you show for everybody, and I think it's kind of infectious, and I really thank you for that. So,
Thank you.
gonna miss having you up here. Looking forward to having Carol up here too. But.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Just sort of,
Yeah, I was going to say happy Thanksgiving, and Tim, thank you very much. Good knowing you, and probably in future as well. And unofficial welcome to Carol. We can do it after 27th, the official one. And happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
all right, Mr. Buchanan.
Yeah, I just want to echo appreciation for Tim's service and his leadership throughout the years. It's been amazing, the things that were accomplished under his leadership out at Lummi Nation. And, just thank you for your leadership so much. It was such a pleasure to work with you.
given too much credit for 10 months' worth of work, but I do want to say, as my last opportunity, as mentioned, there's only so much that a council member can do in 10 months, let alone in one term, and often what we do isn't actually able to be measured until after. I don't know if Barbara was here during the policy decision for the PDR, but it's 16 years, and the council and the county has nearly met its goal. I want to encourage the council again to set a fish harvest goal to establish similar metrics and programs to help advance that economy in our county, which is, I think, the two heritage economies in our county, being farming and fishing. And if we can do more work to set a goal for the county to work towards and set programs to reach that goal, it would be, I think it'd be fitting to the history of this place where our people have come from.
So speaking for myself, I would certainly welcome a submission from you as to what that harvest goal should be.
I think that something similar to I think an average between somewhere in the 70s and 80s harvest is a good start. And I imagine just like the PDR, it's once that goal is met, to progress towards increased harvest.
So I would invite you to help us quantify that and provide recommendations as to how we can achieve it.
Oh, absolutely. I'm happy that the county put it on the docket for future discussion.
Thank you. Ms. Brenner?
I'd like to work with you on that, because I have some ideas too.
All right, if there's no further business, we are adjourned. Thank you. And happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.